So I think we did a little split where I was talking about how using Gunny Glide on this electric motor and it freeing that up is what let me know that we were where we wanted to be with this. Gunny Glide was originally developed for knife pivots, firearms. I use it. I'm also a firearms instructor. I use it on all my firearms. Like I said, the graphene burnishes into material. The misconception is people have to keep everything wet. The nice thing about the Gunny lubricants is once oil dissipates, even if oil is no longer there, you still have a lubricant there, because really the oil is a carrier for the dry lubricants. The oil helps them picking the right viscosity and the right oils aid the dry lubricants in working faster and, you know, help them to work better initially. But what you'll notice with Gunny Glide is after a week or so, things keep getting smoother.
Okay.
The more you work the action, the smoother it gets. That's because of the lubricants burning into the metal.
But with oils, like if they get hot, do we have to worry about the viscosity changing? Like when we think of oil in our car.
I have a video, maybe I'll eventually post it. It's like 18 seconds of me taking so I didn't sit there on the Gunny Glide with the torch forever, but little handheld torch, and I'm putting the flame directly to it. Did nothing to it.
Nice.
In the winter, I froze it or tried to freeze it. It doesn't freeze. It does get slightly thicker, but it still works.
Okay.
So we haven't found a temperature low enough for this not to work or high enough for this not to work.
Okay. Well, Gunny Glide is good. I have some everyday carry knives. I'm not a big everyday carry person, but I know that they are starting to stick a little bit. So when I get some of this, I'll be anxious to use that on that. And for me, it'll be seeing the viscosity and what it gets on, and is it messy, and is it easy to dispense? You said it's pretty thin, so it should be pretty simple.
Really good corrosion protection too. I have some commercial fishermen down in Florida that use it on their tools to keep their cutters and everything from rusting up. They've used it on their cutters and brought them back, and they said that they work better than they did when they first bought them. Like they'll drop open, and it keeps them from rusting up and corroding.
Sure. I mean, if you're especially all wet all the time and then you add salt, and it's just
right. And the thing with graphene, it's impermeable even to helium gas.
I don't know the relevance of that.
You're creating a really tight barrier.
Okay.
If helium gas can't get through it, what else is going to get through it?
I didn't know that was because I'm not tech savvy enough to know that that was the standard. But for all of us who just heard, we just heard that was the standard, and
it's the new standard.
So this bottle, you know, that we get is gonna, like, whatever we put it to, it's good on it for like a long time. I mean, a little goes a long way until you just run out of stuff to put it on.
Yeah, and then you know, once you reapply, a lot of us, even myself, I probably reapply it more than I really need to. And I've learned that for most of my knives, even the kind of crappy ones, that the action isn't so good. Once I apply it once or twice and I get the graphene in there good and I've got really good action on it, I haven't really had to apply it again. The other thing it does is people will notice dirt in it, whether it's old oils or whatever, it pushes it out of your knife pivot. It repels it. It pushes it away. Okay. So it does help to keep things cleaner too.
Well, I use my everyday carry for getting dirty, from cutting boxes to outdoor stuff to wood to working around my grill to, so it'll definitely be subjected to all of that. So since you and I talked before, your website has this product that I'd never heard of until I read it on here, Gunny Magic. You're a magician now. So what kind of magic are you doing on us with this product?
So actually, Emily at Omaha Knife suggested the name because everybody kept saying it was like magic. So this is a super thin viscosity lubricant. I mean, like water thin. That was developed for out the front knives. The thing with out the front knives, such as Microtech has really tight tolerances, which makes them really good knives. Also makes them susceptible to misfire because there's a safety on them. So you don't shoot it straight into you, pushing the button, and having the knife fire out forward. So every other lubricant I've ever tried on them, if you don't get all the lubricant out or most of the lubricant out, if you don't blow it out with compressed air, it causes them to misfire. Microtech suggests using REM oil on it. You put the REM oil in and then compressed air to blow it out. Otherwise, it'll misfire. I personally wanted something different, and I think everybody else did too. So I know Heretic came out with a lube for their knives. They're out the front knives. I have never tried theirs, so I can't speak to theirs, but I can say I have a video on my YouTube channel of a knife that we did at Omaha Knife that was gummed up pretty bad, and we used way more than we needed to, but putting this stuff on, and I think the whole video is 2 minutes and 18 seconds, and it wouldn't fire in either direction. Curtis even grabs the blade and has to shake it to get it to even extend all the way. And before the video's out, it's firing like brand new in both directions. For a lot of people, if they get theirs gummed up, and some people are more savvy with their knives, and they'll figure it out and find a way to clean it and all that. And then there's a lot of people that will send them in to Microtech, and Microtech will do it, or they'll have somebody else do it. This prevents them from having to do that. The excess oil, because it's so thin, will come out of the seams. You end up having to wipe it off. But everybody that's used it, I've gotten really good feedback on. I have personally not tried it on an out the front knife that it didn't fix that was misfiring in 2 minutes or less, unless there was a mechanical problem with the knife.
What for people like myself, like I'm more of a kitchen knife person, and I'm hearing these mechanics and things you're talking about. You've just mentioned 2 different lubricants that do 2 different thicknesses. What makes me go back, and what makes me not choose this as my overall one product? Why would I get one or the other?
So where you're going to run into a difference there. So using the really thin out the front on like a folder, one of the things that make the magic work so good on out the front knives is it happens to clean really well. So it's cleaning the gummy stuff out of the track. It's moving it away. It is too thin for a folding knife pivot. So it'll clean it really well, but you don't have the tight tolerances that you do on an out the front. So you don't have the graphene setting in the track. On the out the front, you'll have the graphene setting in the track, so the action will work it in. Okay. On a folding knife, it's going to run right through. So it's going to clean it really well, but you're going to get metal on metal action, and you're going to feel a grittiness.
Okay.
So you want just a little bit thicker viscosity for the oil to stay there and hold the graphene there long enough for the graphene to work in. If the graphene just runs right through it, then all you did was clean your pivot. You didn't get graphene to stay there. Then you'll get a metal on metal action.
Okay. And so for those of us who are watching this today, if you are in the market for either one, make sure you read about it and get the right lubricant for the job. Because there's a little more. I'm glad I asked, because I'm like, why wouldn't I just use the thin one for everything? But it's going to, like you said, run right through, and it's not going to stick around long enough to be durable over time for my folder. So we have a product here with no info. You get a little sneak peek for us. And
yeah, I have somebody that does the website, so I've got to get them to upload info to it.
What are we sliding here? What's Gunny Slide?
So Gunny Slides. I had a lot of people that like a little bit thicker viscosity for knife detents. Gunny Glide works on knife detents. The oil will, run off the detent and run out, but the graphene, once you work the action, still stays there. But some people don't like that. They wanted something a little thicker. So the Gunny Slides is good for knife detents.
This is the thickest.
It's the thickest I have right now. I have a gel that we can talk about that is probably the thickest and slickest I have. But some people like a little thicker viscosity for their pistol slides and things like that. So anything you would really, any of these, anything you want a thick viscosity for, you're going to want the slides. Anything you want a super thin viscosity for, you're going to want the Magic. And for just about everything else, you want the Glide. My dad's even put the Glide on his garage door opener. I've got it on every hinge of my house. So, I mean, it's a good all-purpose lubricant. But the Slides is also used on some bearings, like knife bearings.
Okay.
You have a lot of the higher end knives, they have really good bearings. Gunny Glide works great on them. Some people like a little thicker viscosity on those. But if you have bearings that kind of feel gritty or rattle a little bit because they're, not high-end bearings, and you have a little bit of space for them to move, the Gunny Slides works well on that too, because it takes up that space. So you get the lubricant and you kind of take up that space, and it takes away that rattle or grittiness that you feel in those bearings.
Okay. And apparently a thicker version's on the way as well.
Yes, there's a Gunny Gel. I had a Gunny Grease. Everybody's going to be curious about that. I've talked about Gunny Grease for a long time. Here's what I found with our grease. I was getting close to being ready to bring it to market. There was a little bit of testing left to do, and I froze it. Well, it doesn't freeze, but the grease we made turned into almost like a silicone rubber at real cold temperatures. But bringing it back up to room temperature didn't change the properties. It was still like a silicone rubber. So that's one of those things, back burner. Not that anybody's going to be freezing it necessarily, but like I said, anything I bring out, I kind of want a home run. I want people to use it and go, wow. I want to use it and go, wow. If I'm not using it and going, wow, then we'll find something else. Now the gel is, it takes such a tiny amount. Gel's not going to be cheap. It's going to come out in syringes, but it takes such a tiny amount of that because it is so slick. You can put just a tiny dab, like pinhead dab on your fingers and rub it together. And 20 minutes later, you're going, wow.
Okay. So this is, I was going to bring this up, and it's a perfect spot for this. So disclaimer for anyone watching, this is not a lubricant that is typically designed for human consumption, prolonged contact, or like this is these are mechanical lubricants. It's not harmful to get it on you, but its purposes are not for man-made purposes. Its purposes are for mechanical purposes.
And we're getting ready to have to put that on all the labeling. I mean, like, technically, any of us could be allergic to anything. So, but yeah, nobody's had issues with it, but it's not something you don't go painting your body with it just because the Gunny Glide has different scents. You don't want to go eating it. It doesn't taste like it smells.
And it does not need to bind itself in the body. It is a foreign object. So consuming it or it getting in the body in any way is not necessarily going to be a healthy thing for you to do. So if your brain was wondering, we've said it here on this video, it is for mechanical purposes. That was its intent. We can't keep you from doing things that are off label, but it is not recommended for any type of biomechanical situation that you might think of. Okay. So we have covered Gunny Juice products. I don't know if your whole empire is going to be just called Gunny products or what's it going to be called.
So US Aces is the parent company that I started for all the Gunny products.
Okay.
Gunny products is going to be a line. US Aces, of course, US based company. ACES stands for Applied Concepts of Experimental Science. And that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're applying different concepts of experimental science. I do have some other products that are coming out that one of the things for sharpeners that I think people are going to get really excited about is this.
Yes, we almost, how did I forget? I forget. I'm
Oh,
so for those of you watching, I'm mostly a hand sharpener. I'm starting to mess with some machines right now. But so I sharpen stones, stones load up, stones get dirty. They get a slurry, they get metal, they get extra ceramic, then abrasive material that's freeing itself and getting caught inside of itself. So you
how many times as a sharpener, especially since YouTube channel, you have people ask you, what do you clean your stones with? How do you clean your stones? That's something we have all asked each other a million times. See if somebody's got a better idea.
And typically it's an abrasive property. I mean, typically it's something like sandpaper that we rub and we try to free the material through friction, but in doing so, we're also wearing away the material.
Right. So I come up with this stone cleaner. Now, let me be transparent. All the products that I come up with, or come out with, I should say, I may have had an idea, but I'm not necessarily in a lab creating all of these. I have the people that I work with that are manufacturing this, that are hitting home runs on some of this. The Gunny Magic, man, they kept sending me stuff. I'm like, man, this isn't quite what I want. And I was about ready to back burner the Magic. And then he sent me what happened to be Magic. And I was like, wow, man, you hit a home run with this. So I want to be very transparent and credit that team of people, especially one individual, which, you know, down the road, I'll tell you who he is, but not just yet.
We understand you got it.
But he does such an amazing job. Those people I can't stress how great they are to work with. He's done so much to get us where we are now. Like the Gunny Glide, we went back and forth, and you know, that was a little bit of a collaboration. The cleaner I made, but again, just like the Glide, I made it taking a base product that he had, and I changed it.
Okay.
So this cleaner. Now we'll talk about the cleaner. Like I said, I always want to be honest and I always want to be transparent. I want to give credit where credit is due. And I may have ideas, but I don't have equipment and don't even necessarily always know how to make some ideas come to fruition. But teaming up with these guys, teaming up with this guy has been a godsend, because he can take an idea and we can kind of go back and forth and he'll get it right. He'll get it exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, so, again, I mean, you had to come up with the idea, the need, the purpose. You can even suggest certain things, chemical properties. He's maybe in his head got more access to properties and pick which ones are going to serve your purpose. Right. The engineering, the conception is here. The engineering has to happen with multiple engineers. And here we are.
We've been a good team working together, but I just like to give credit where credit is due, and can't tell you guys how much we should all appreciate these people.
Very good. So now, we don't have a name for the new cleaner.
I don't yet. I will soon. And that's because it's a combination of things, Greg. So this cleaner cleans stones better than anything I've ever used. And that's with my products. That's what I want. I want something.
Am I going to be misting this onto the stone?
I take a bottle with a little like drip tube, like a squeeze bottle, similar to this, but without a spray, like a drip cap.
Okay.
I take that and drop a couple drops on the stone. It's a water-based cleaner. This, especially if you put it in combination with like a magic eraser, you'll get any stone clean. I've used it on my shaft ends. I've used it on, I've used it to clean J-nats. I have not, because I gave mine to somebody else. I haven't sharpened with them, but that's where this comes in. It's a honing fluid, a sharpening fluid. Okay. So by using this in place of like soapy water or something like that, it's about the same consistency, but it keeps your stones from loading. So you keep cutting. You can, and if the slurry's starting to get thick, put a couple drops on it, wipe it off with your finger, with the rag. You got a clean stone again, and just keep going.
Okay.
Keeps your fingers clean. Like if you get this stuff on your fingers while you're sharpening, all the black stuff we always get on them, wipe them off on a towel while they're wet, and they're perfectly clean, like you never touched anything.
Okay.
At the end, if you have a little, I'll get it up here where this part of my finger will be clean from wiping it, and I didn't wipe this, but at the end, I'll put a couple drops on, wipe my fingers off, perfectly clean. I do have a video on my YouTube channel showing where I put a couple drops on and kind of run across and cleaned it. But I think this is going to be a big hit. I've sent out a couple samples for people to use. One person wanted a thicker viscosity, but he's used to using oil.
Yeah.
And this isn't as thick as oil, but it will work.
Right, and we can't have oil on our stones. I mean, they're water stones.
Well, the water stones you can't, but diamonds you can.
Okay.
The thing with the oils is it's hard to find a good viscosity because they're almost always too thick. And even people that like using oil don't realize how much it is actually slowing down their sharpening.
Okay.
This is a graphene-based cleaner, and it does an amazing job. I also have this coming out, and this is a graphene-based glass cleaner, surface cleaner. It does really well at cleaning blades. It does pretty good at getting tape residue off your blade. Okay. Most people are using alcohol and stuff, but you can put this stuff on, take a microfiber, rub it down, and it does well at getting.
I'm going to be messing with Tormix soon, and I know there'll be like tape on the back of the blade, a clamp for me to use, and then when I untape it, I've got adhesive to remove. Yeah,
I'll send you some of this too. But what it really does well for is your touch screens. Okay. So it keeps. The more you use it, the better it works at keeping fingerprints off. You'll notice after a while, it'll keep fingerprints off for days at a time.
I've got fingerprints on the screen. I'm looking at you. It's a 27-inch, iMac. Yeah. And now that the sun's starting to come in, like all the fingerprints are appearing on the glass.
This also makes your touch screens a lot more responsive because graphene conducts electricity better than any single material we know of. You have graphene on your screen, so it makes them a lot more sensitive to touch.
Okay.
So it gives a different feel. It gives kind of a slick feel, but like you have good contact with your screen and just barely touching it. Everything works really well. So kind of excited about that.
So I'll say for everybody listening, when we hear you getting into this business, we don't know how far it can go. And then you went in places that no one thought of. And so you're seeing needs that we didn't know we needed and satisfying needs. So obviously, like you said, with revenue, supply chain, these are coming out as they come out. We've heard of them today. You'll announce them in the forums the way you do. He has his own YouTube channel. We'll definitely put links in the channel. He's on Instagram. We've got, is it Gunny Sharp Talk? Is it Gunny Talk or Gunny Sharp?
Gunny's Sharp Talk.
Gunny Sharp Talk. So we're going to have links in the description.
I'm going to give you something that I haven't announced on my channel yet. I haven't really officially announced anywhere. Might have mentioned it to a couple people, but this will be the first big platform. What we're working on right now is coming up with the right resin, because I plan on, I'm not going to say 100% because anything can go wrong, but we're working on creating the right resin, a brand new resin, so that I can put out my own resin bonded diamond stones.
I figured you were going there, resin bond. So in the world, for those of you guys, I had a video, I'll put it out. I talked about CVN and diamond. Obviously, your world is diamond. And in the video, we discussed electroplated. So for those listening, the electroplate material, nickel, that the diamonds or CVN is in, it creates a layer that they go into. So think of the nickel as melted and the diamond, the cutting material is in it. And the cutting material, as it gets smaller, it goes into the nickel, so it doesn't protrude. So you can only get so small, especially with CVN. I think 1200 is like as small as you can get. The resin is a different material that you can make it thinner than, say, nickel, but you can still only get so small with the particles, because the resin at 1 millimeter still is got a thickness that, as the diamonds get smaller, the diamonds themselves become smaller than the resin, and they get under the resin instead of sticking out on the resin. And then there are people out there with vitrified stones, which is a ceramic stone in which the particle, the cutting abrasive, is baked into the ceramic, and as you wear away, stones are popping out, but ceramic is coming off, and you're revealing more of the cutting abrasive as you go down. So Scott is saying he's going to get into the resin bonded game.
So with the vitrified, you can only go so fine, and then they don't really work that well anymore.
Okay.
As far as polishing, they may still get a little sharper, but as far as polishing, the thing with any stones other than, your typical stones, but any diamond or CBN stone, the thing that I think I can do, and I won't rest until I do, because I know it's possible, difficult but possible. You have to get the perfect resin, but nobody can go down to 1 micron and below, because they cause scratches. Because either your particles are clumping and you've got a larger particle size, or your resin's too hard. Yeah, or your resin's too hard. The resin causes scratches. I think I know how to solve that. So
funny, because I have ideas and I'm going to discuss them on here, like, publicly, so people don't. But I mean, some of the stuff you and I talked about earlier with some science makes me think of some stuff.
Yeah, there's.
But to leave that, you made me think of something completely separate, which was we make this thing called Christmas crack, and it is a candy that we make at Christmas, and I think everybody's had a version of it. But you'll have chocolate melted, and then you put these Heath bar bits of brickle in the chocolate, and if the chocolate's like, if your resin is cooling and then your diamonds aren't in the resin, but you could get your diamonds in the half cooled sticky stage, then you could get your diamonds on top of the resin, which would be nice, instead of the diamond sinking below the resin and having a lot of particles below the 1 millimeter. That would be kind of cool.
The key with this is going to, and I'll give this part away. I'm not going to give the whole process away, but the key is to come up with the right concentration of diamond. So the way these work, too low of a concentration will polish really well, but it'll take away that bite once you start getting fine like that.
Yeah.
Too high of a concentration, and you run the risk of clumping them together. And also, so the key is going to be to get the abrasive into the resin in a certain way before you let it harden before you bake it, before you do any of that, so that you have all the particles exactly where you want them before it gets too hard. Okay. And there's a process that I have in mind that I think I can accomplish that. And by keeping tight particle size specs, along with, see, it's hard to deionize them in a resin because the resin takes that away. But I have another process that I have in mind that I think we can make this happen. I know we can. It's just figuring out how. I think I can with this process. If I can't with this process, then we may, depending on cash flow, we may put it off for a little bit, but it's one of those things that I'm determined to make happen.
My closing three statements are going to be, one, is that going to be switching over to a monocrystalline versus a polycrystalline?
Probably, because the monocrystalline tends to do better in a stone, but it may be monocrystalline to a certain point and go to polycrystalline.
Okay. The next thing is your presence at Blade Show.
I will be there.
So there you go. So if those of you who are going to be going to Blade Show, at least the Atlanta Blade Show, we can announce that Scott will be present at a table there with products. So if you haven't had a chance to put your hands on something, demo, see how the application process is. I know that Scott has done some videos on application. I think that once I get products, I'm going to review what he did and put out my own video of how to properly apply, because I have used these products on materials and not had it seem to apply. He's given me some suggestions today of what I might have been doing wrong. So I definitely want to talk about the application of Gunny Juice and the different materials and stuff. And so, so that was two of the things.
Quick tip on the leather that you have trouble with. Sometimes if you take a really fine sandpaper and you go over the leather, it'll absorb better.
Okay. So the last thing is, for those of you who may have heard, it's not urban legend. Scott can verify it today, that Scott on his best at his home with a product that you currently do not have available. It's available to him because he made it. Scott was freehand sharpening. So he was not using a guided system, even though he's a fan of guided system. He started off as a hand sharpener. So Scott, with years of experience, years of touch, knowledge of what he wanted to do using products not available to you, had taken a certain type of steel, a knife that he had. He had several of these knives. So a lot of times we say technique, the steel itself, it's heat treatment, because not always that steel does that performance. But with a certain knife, with a certain heat treat, with a certain product you don't have, and with years of experience, Scott had obtained single-digit best scores. He replicated it several times. Then, and the videos on his channel, he then took an identical knife to show that the machine, the best tester, wasn't rigged. You know, he showed a different score on that knife, went back, and then he used the very sharp knife and he put it through a test of cutting things. Cutting things on the cutting board and cutting things, and then still got a 10, like used it for a while, and still the edge was so accurate. And so cleaning the apex, you know, using the stones. So now you have a new edge, you have striations on the side, constantly refining as the knife. He said something that it makes a lot of sense. Like, this has nothing to do with cutting feel, because when your knife is inside a stake or material pulling through, the side of the apex has scratches and grip. Those, he talked about ditches earlier that have metal being folded away. As you pull your knife through, those things are grabbing. And so knife feel and knife performance overall is different than just having an apex that's sharp. I will say a knife manufacturer, a knife maker at Blade Show last year said something that really resonated with me. He goes, break a piece of glass, because chances are the edge itself might be 90 degrees, but we all fear the glass, how sharp the glass is. The grain structure of the glass and the edge is so finite that it has an incredible apex. But if it's 90 degrees, it won't cut through food well because it's wide. But Scott was able to refine an edge freehand with something you don't have, a certain type of that he got single digit. I will definitely put a link to that video so you can see that. And I'm excited to whenever
there
that's
was the follow-up video is when I did the cutting, because the first video I was just kind of shocked that I got that low. So I set up a camera real quick and I'm like, did it 2 more times on camera because I wasn't expecting that.
So not that all of us need to achieve these things, but what I was happy to see in the video was that, being the scientist that he is, he on the video shows you him going through different parameters to make sure it wasn't a fluke. And another thing was, every single person, every time I've sharpened the knife and got it super sharp, they want to know, like, how long is it going to stay that way? And he cuts through a lot of stuff and then shows that the edge is still extremely sharp. So we will get into edge retention videos at some point, talking about how that works and everything. But today we have, a scientific mind with us, trying to make our world of knives and other things better. We appreciate you taking the time. We took a lot of your time today away from family. Glad you're going to get some rest. I'm going to get a little sunshine. Apparently that's what it's calling me. This video is going to air this Friday. It's long enough that it might be a part 1 and part 2, which means it might be Tuesday and Friday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Just so we can keep the attention spans of all our viewers.
Right.
Good luck with getting all these products out. I know you're working hard.
I appreciate the interview, man.
Hey, I just want to show some people. I'm going to do a little plug for those of you who don't know. We have some Gunny Juice and Gunny Glide products on my website. I always put a link in the description of the video. We were given permission from Scott Gunn to represent his logo on some products. So in the store, if you need want some of this great merch, obviously with the sizes available, if it's so many different people, various colors as well. And we don't have these things like overpriced. So if you want to get something to represent Scott, it's available to you. That was my shameless plug on behalf of Scott and myself. I do enjoy it. This is a white one, so I probably won't wear it sharpening and getting it dirty. I'll have to just wear it out and represent. Thank you always for your time. I look forward to getting the products and testing them. Kind of giving you a fist bump from here. Enjoy your family and rest today.
All right.
Thanks as always.
Take care, man.
Hey, listen, hopefully you guys that are watching, this was not a dull moment. We appreciate your comments. If you have questions for Scott, please leave it in the comments. I'll make sure that he sees them. And if he has the time, he'll respond in the comment areas. And just let him know what you love. And if you got a recommended product for him to look at or talk about, let him know. And I'm sure he'll get back to you when he can. But appreciate your time. Appreciate you guys checking out our channel. We're typically Friday nights at 8 o'clock. Sometimes we throw you a nugget on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. As always, we will not be at Blade Show this year. My family, my stepdaughter's graduating high school. We have our priorities. So we will be enjoying a high school graduation. So have a good time in Atlanta. Thank you guys for checking in the show. God bless as always.
Thanks,
Bye,
man.
Scott.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.